Hi, I'm Shaka Hislop, and you're here at Extra Time TV.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. This is Andre Suklal, joined by the other Andre once again, Andre Samuel. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Here relaxing.
Yes.
Just waiting for the football to start.
Yeah, of course, this is the night before, and we tried to do a match preview, and there's so much technological problems, and we're holding back this wonderful talk. But we're going to give a quick preview of the match tomorrow. But before we get into that, obviously everybody's talking about the last qualifier against St. Kitts. So this game, was a great result on paper. 6-2 in the end, final result. It was a bit closer. We would have maybe liked in the first half. At halftime, people were a little bit uneasy. But what was your initial reaction to this?
I mean, I think it was a fantastic result. A lot of people thinking it's only St. Kitts, but I mean, St. Kitts, the football has changed so much with a lot of these so-called minnows, teams that people traditionally think are non-existent or should be beaten easily. But when you look, and even with these recent qualifiers, you saw Andorra coming up against England. England only beating them 1-0. You have Cuba beating Antigua only 1-0. You have Jamaica only beating the US Virgin Islands 1-0. We have Honduras beating the Cayman Islands 1-0. So the football has changed to the point where a lot of the smaller teams are actually coming to the party now, and it's a lot more difficult to win these games. Even the St. Kitts team, there are a couple of players who they have that actually played in Europe. One of their striker plays in Stevenage in League One, which with Daniel Phillip. The other guy, there's a tricky guy on the right hand side who gave Hospitals a lot of trouble. He used to play in Portugal. He's now playing in Kosovo, I believe, but he's one of their European-based players. So they have play, and they have obviously the popular Romain Sawyers, who used to play in the Premier League with West Brom, who's also in his squad. He skippers his squad. So we look at them as St. Kitts, but they've also tapped into their diaspora and have players who are playing in England. So it is not an easy game per se all the time. So I am grateful for the result. I'm happy that we were able to score better goals. I'm disappointed that we conceded because the team is due a clean sheet. But all in all, I think it's a wonderful result, and I'm looking forward for the team to take confidence from that win and take it into the game against Costa Rica.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, time is short, there's a couple hours before game time. So what we'll do is just a quick rundown of the stats. So obviously, Trinidad Tobago was reasonably even. This is from Sofascore. 59% possession versus 59 for us. We got 23 shots, 15 on target, which is, shows Dwight Yorke style of play. He says he loves, and he repeatedly said in all the press conferences, he wants to be a proactive team, which I totally agree with.
Yeah, on the front foot, correct.
Yeah, we've always been a reactive team since, all the way back since the 2006 qualifiers when you and I were there. We've been looking at games, and sometimes you come in and it's like 1-0 down, and it's almost like that's what we thrive on, which is not necessarily a good thing. And he's trying to change that. And of course, in the qualifying table, as it stands, while we're recording this, Costa Rica is on top with 9 points, Trinidad with 7. And, it's a different qualifying process now, and I'll probably make a separate video to explain the whole process for those of you who don't know. The little nerds like myself would know everything. But, we have a very good chance, one of the best chances we had in years in terms of in qualifying spots to get in. So there's a reason why there's generally a positive era. But with that being said, it is a positive result. We all agree with that. It was a great result. I mean, yes, we did concede some goals. We expressed our concerns in our previous discussion about the defense, and Dwight Yorke is aware of this. We know this, and he's trying to address it as much as possible. So with all those things we spoke about before, heading into this game, what are your thoughts of, how our approach is going to be? Because Dwight Yorke openly admitted in the press conference, which you all could head over to the YouTube channel and check out, and said he knows it's going to be a difficult game. Costa Rica historically has always been close. They have top quality players. Everybody talks about Keylor Navas and so on, but there are lots of other players that play at a high level. Costa Rica plays a possession-based game. They like to go down the wings. They're very comfortable on the ball. Maybe some people will argue that they're not as powerful as they have been in recent years, but to me, they always are a quality team. What are your thoughts heading into this game?
Again, I agree with you. Just to to stem off some of the things that you've said. Um, Costa Rica traditionally they are a CONCACAF powerhouse. They've been in the top five CONCACAF teams for as long as I can remember. They have a good strong local league, and they've always had a lot of representation in Europe and even in the MLS. They have players playing in the La Liga with Valencia. They have players. I think one plays in the Dutch league with Feyenoord. And Keylor Navas is back in with the squad as well, and we all know of his pedigree. So Costa Rica is a team that we should never ever take lightly. And on top of that, historically and traditionally, Caribbean teams on a whole have always struggled playing in Central America, whether it's at El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, those four main countries. We have traditionally struggled playing there, so it's going to be a difficult match. What we do have in our favor is the fact that Costa Rica has already qualified for two things or three things. The first thing, they already qualified for the next round, so they're already through. The second thing is that they played a day later than us, so we have 24 hours more rest than them. So potentially they might rotate players. And thirdly, the result is of no consequence for them in the next round because it doesn't matter if they qualify first or second because they will be seeded as one of the top. If they will be seeded in the top, I think the group or the pot A. So whether Trinidad wins the game and tops the group, or Costa Rica wins or draws the game and tops the group, they will be in pot A, and I think Trinidad and Tobago might be in pot C. It depends on the teams that qualify because it goes solely based on rankings. So out of the 12 teams to qualify for the next round, the top three based on ranking will be in pot A. Then the next three will be in pot B, then pot three, pot C, then pot D. So the game basically is a dead rubber game for Costa Rica. So essentially, they might not be at the races the way in which they would normally would. But having said that, it's still a game that they're playing on home soil, and it's still a game with players still vying for places to make sure that that they get to start for the Gold Cup. It's still part of their Gold Cup representation. So all in all, it'll be a tough match for Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, you're correct. That just to build on what you were saying, we've seen this in the past where there was a narrative where when teams are qualified, and in some cases it's true they do take it easy, but I use that phrase with a grain of salt because I think coaches are trying to fine tune their squads. That their windows to experiment are getting smaller now. All the games are competitive now, especially with the CONCACAF Nations League and all these things where they all are playing for something now. You see it in South America and all these other teams, Argentina as well. They're qualified, but by no means it doesn't mean they're going to come and lay over. They are young players who may be on the fringes, who want to prove themselves to get that into that 20. Well, I was going to say 23. I still have to get used to that wider squad list.
26.
Yeah, now it's 26. So, just looking at form, guys, here, I got it from Sofascore. Thanks again, Sofascore. When I look at form guides, it's interesting because, the timing at international football, there's sometimes large gaps. So sometimes I don't go too far behind. I mean, like some countries, the historical background does play a part, but I'll just call out a couple. The last result in 2017 was 2-1, which was pretty close. It was 2-0. The other one in 2016, I think that's when Stephen Hart was there. 4-0, which was back in 2009, 3-2 in 2008, and 4-0 back in 2007. So in the more recent times, we did give them a good go. I remember even when Dennis Lawrence was there, it was pretty close. And I mean, it's a different squad. A lot of the players that have come over from that squad are now older now. They're more experienced. Jovan Jones, Kevin Molino, Sheldon, and those guys. And it seems as if the camaraderie from when I spoke to the players after the game, I managed to capture a few of them in the mix zone. There is a feel-good factor. But, as veterans, you and I, we know how quickly that could change. There's high highs and then low lows. Make no mistake, Costa Rica is a difficult team. It's very much like the scenario when we were going in 2006, when we had to play Mexico. Well, a lot of people try to fan the flames of being a devil's advocate and said Mexico, kind of threw the game for us and even, whatever. That's a whole other story. That's for the X-Files conversations. But heading into this, Costa Rica, have, like I said before, I've always been a strong team. Dwight Yorke addressed in his press conference today, which you could check out. I'll put a link wherever it is; it'll pop up. That he's aware of the defensive issues, and he also addressed something that you brought up, Andre. I know you brought up Aubry David's absence. One of the journalists from there, he obviously spoke about how well loved he is there, and Dwight Yorke's response was that he analyzed, I think it was 50 something players, and everybody has a shot. What do you think about that? Because I think Aubry would have been crucial in a game like this. Even if he didn't play, there's always insight, just like Levi and I can't remember the other guy's name, plays for Spartak Moscow. I'm pretty sure all coaches always sit down and be like, listen, what can you tell me? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of strange that Aubry David is not in his squad. He wasn't just a regular player in his squad. He was a captain prior to York's arrival. So he went from being a captain and a certainty, a sure starter for every single game under Angus Eve to he was in his squad in his series against Cuba. He's one of the few players that did not even come onto the pitch against Cuba. And now he's not even picked in a Trinidad team that has that has been known for having these defensive frailties. And also, he played in Costa Rica for the majority of his career. He speaks Spanish, so if he overhears something, he could kind of shout the instruction to kind of help the team out. So I think that having Aubrey on the team would have been would have had and it would have been a positive aspect for the team. However, I mean, York is entitled to pick the players that suit him. There are players that I think that should be in the team. For example, I think Kylie Overick should be in this team as well
Oh, yeah.
because he had a good season with the Jamaican outfit. I think Cavaliers, I believe, but he has not gotten a sniff under Dwight Yorke. So whatever the reason be, maybe style of play, maybe there was a conversation that was had that they didn't mesh well, or something of this sort. But Dwight Yorke at the end of the day, is entitled to pick whoever he feels or who sees fit to that would conform into his style of play, and maybe based on how he wants to play, Aubrey David is not the player for him. So, but I do find it strange that Aubrey David is not with this team, even in the leadership. I think the Aubrey David is, from a leadership standpoint, is out. So I'm seeing that Sheldon Bato is back in. So I guess maybe it's a toss up between just having one older head with a couple of the younger ones. But I mean, the centre back position is a position that is a weak area for Trinidad and Tobago. And if you want to have your best players, you just get your best players. So we'll see how it goes. I know that there are a couple of other players that may be eligible for Trinidad and Tobago to play in the defense. We know I don't know if you're familiar with Darren Payne, who plays in Holland. He's a right back. Sometimes he plays centre back, but he's primarily a right back. So he's a player that did you hear his team got promoted to the Eredivisie. His father is Trinidadian. So I'm curious to know if the TTFA has reached out to him. Then there's another player, centre back by the name of I think Kobe Henry, who was playing in France, who's now back in the MLS with Real Salt Lake. He played with the US under 20, similar to Dante. But I'm not sure if they reached out to him. So from getting back to the initial point, I know that the defense needs work, and starting with Aubrey, I think that he's a player that should still be there. However, at the end of the day, it's Dwight Yorke is the one who has to make the selection. He is the one with the vision for how the team should be played. And who am I to question a player who has played at the highest level and knows a lot more about football than maybe both of us combined?
Yeah, correct. And and one of the things, having been a fan and also working with these guys professional, even on the national team a little bit, they see things that we don't. And we could sit and, nitpick lineups and things like that. But, there's things that he will see, tactical reasons, and maybe one day we'll catch an interview with him. And, he doesn't need to explain, but, he probably has his reasons and it will be revealed in time. So I'm pretty sure he has a good reason. And, hopefully it's a good reason. So, just to tap on Costa Rica, I mean, they came off, I don't like to say, it sounds a little bit disrespectful, but they came off a good result against, Bahamas. I think it was 8-0 yeah, it was 8-0. So, they're heading in with a good, morale is high. There's no pressure on them. You could see Costa Rica have always, played with that three at the back, over the years. And, they like to go out wide. They're not afraid to play that flexible three, which could be five at the back formation. It seems like just it's a cultural thing. They play a lot of friendlies against South American opposition all the time, which serves them well for that style of football. And heading into this game, tactically, what do you think about Dwight Yorke tactically in the last game? And is he going to change anything heading into this game? What do you think?
I definitely think he's going to play a back three. I think we might potentially play Alvin on the right as the right sided center back alongside Trebingham and Sheldon Battle. Um, and then more or less we'll have Raymond and maybe Cardines as the attacking wing backs on either side, or it might even be Dante because Dante Sealy plays sometimes as an attacking right wing back as well for his team in the MLS. So I think we're going to be a little more solid defense. We're going to try to be a little more solid defensively. Um, because obviously we will have Phillips, and maybe the protection of maybe Rampersad might start again. He had a pretty bad game last time, but Rampersad has been a consistent performer.
Yep.
Or I'm not sure if he's going to start Anjani Fortune, although he starts for Atlanta United in a central defensive role. But he is a flair player. He's a lot more creative. So who knows if he might come into the lineup. But I do suspect that we're going to play with three at the back. And there's a little bit of a concern for me with the three at the back. Not because it's playing, not the whole idea of playing three at the back, but based on the lineup or based on the players that we selected, we only have three centre backs. So there's no wiggle room if the formation is going to be three at the back. We only have three players who can play that centre back position, and Alvin is essentially a full back. So we'll see how it goes. Dwight has a vision for how the team is going to play. They looked at based on the what I've seen in a couple of interviews. They looked at the game Costa Rica versus the Bahamas. So they're doing their, as the New York like to say regularly, due diligence on the teams that they have to play against. And I could just only hope that we give them a fight. Just a point to note that things can go very, very badly, very, very quick tomorrow. If Green is we have a 7 goal advantage over Grenada. However, if Grenada beats St. Kitts 4-0 and we lose to Costa Rica 4-0, then we are out. And the feel good factor and the Dwight Yorke ism and all these wonderful things that have been happening for the past week will go strictly out of the door. And Dwight Yorke will be quote unquote the worst thing out since Terry Fenwick, right? Because we also got knocked out pretty early with Fenwick at the help as well. So essentially, um the main advantage we have, and I'm not sure why CONCACAF did this, maybe for probably television reasons, but I think that Grenada plays first. So
Wow.
by 10 o'clock when we play tomorrow, 9 o'clock, I can't remember the exact time of the game, but when our game starts, the game that Grenada plays against St. Kitts will be completed. So we'll know exactly what we need to do. So if they win 1-0, if they draw, or if they beat them 6-0, we'll know we can't lose by 2 goals. So we can't. So it will be in our hands to know exactly how we need to set up for that game. So that's the main advantage that we have tomorrow.
Yes. This is why we have Andre on the show, folks, because you read my mind. This is literally the scenario I was going to talk about. So you gave my throat a little bit of a rest because that was one of my concerns. I was literally going to say exactly what you said. This could go really great or extremely horrible for us, just like my Inter Milan team, which I follow this season. That's another story. It went from treble to zero. But that's just the reality of football, folks. And sometimes this is where we come in. Not everybody understands or knows these scenarios and follow it like we do. They turn up with the games. And that's a legitimate scenario. We could easily, before the match, have a lot of pressure put on us if they get the result they need to get, which is Grenada. And it's 7 points. And now all of a sudden these players go into it knowing, okay, guys, we can't lose, and, this is a team that's growing. I'm sure Dwight Yorke probably had this discussion with those players, and I don't know how because we're not behind the scenes, so we don't know the psychological approach they're taking. Dwight Yorke has played at the highest level, and this is part of the game, folks. Tactics, we talk about tactics and physicality and all these things, but the mind games and, dealing with the pressure, sometimes teams buckle under the pressure and they just give in. We have done so in the past, case in point when, when Terry Fenwick was in charge. I believe there was a mental collapse. I saw it on the pitch. The team was just frozen. There's different reasons for that, but that just shows you how quickly it could go down. So that's a scenario we definitely have to be wary of. But at the same time, you can only play what is in front of you, and ideally, the ideal result for us would be a win. That'll be just like the dream scenario. Nothing else matters in the end. But it is a tough game. It could not have been against a tougher team in the group. And personally, I think, if you give me a draw right now, I'll be very happy. I'll be celebrating right now. So before we get to our final predictions, which I don't really like, because to me that's not really analysis, we're just really guessing. So I will call it educated guesses, not predictions. What I would say is, who do you think? I know this is kind of difficult to say, but who do you think is a key player for us tomorrow?
I think it will be 2 players tomorrow.
That's okay.
Could be 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think well, it could be 4. So the first player I think will be crucial for us will be Daniel Phillip.
Mm-hmm.
I think his strength in the midfield is something that will all go well for us tomorrow. I hope he doesn't lunge into any early tackles to pick up any bookings early. But I think his tenacity and his strength in the middle will all go well for us during the course of the game. I think Spicer / Dante, whoever is playing as the right / left winger, to lead those counter attacks, to use their speed to get in behind. I think that will be critical tomorrow because we will be under pressure for a bit. And I think that we will need some kind of outlets, and we will need those speedy wingers to make sure and make critical plays, make good decisions when we have the ball. And I also think that Smith needs to be on point. So because he normally is, and he's a really, really good shot stopper. He has been doing pretty well in the US. I think he was at fault for the second goal against Grenada. That I don't think that wall was, not taken away from the good free kick. However, I think the wall wasn't set up properly and he wasn't positioned properly. However, I think those are the players that I think are key for us tomorrow.
Yes, it's easy. Like I was, put myself in a corner here by saying one player, but I agree with you. We talk about the attacking players, Levi and Kevin and those guys, and the ups. Well, those players in particular, among others, plus the new guys. But defense is going to be key tomorrow, collectively as well. Those guys gonna have to put in a shift as well, and we're gonna have to take those moments when we get them because we're gonna have to rely. I'm just assuming that's how we're gonna play, but those moments when the Costa Rica high line is high up and they keep in possession, and we have those fast players that could go on 1v1 or 2v1 situations. We have the players capable of doing that. So it is one of those games where we really have to play one of our best games, and I believe if we can get like 20, 30 minutes in without conceding, that little window we usually have, I would even say 20 minutes in, be a bit more comfortable. Because in the past, we've mentioned this multiple times, not just with you, but even with Shaka and other people. We tried that in the past, and sometimes, most of the time, we used to eventually concede under Stephen Hart, Angus, everybody. In the 60th minute, we would start to wobble. And I'm sure Yorke is aware of this, and he's probably working on those concentration levels. We do have those little momentary lapses from time to time where the fans, we kind of like, just focus. So we're hoping the experienced players keep them sharp. So for me, it's the center back duo or trio that he chooses to go to, and the ability to take those chances. So I kind of copped out and didn't answer the question there. So that's my way of answering. But Costa Rica, for me, I know there's a wide array of players to pick from. But I think, Keylor Navas has shown how much we love to speak about attacking players in football because, they score goals, they're the glory players. But I remember in previous qualification games, when I think we played really well, Keylor Navas was crucial in keeping a result for Costa Rica, especially at home. I remember there was a ridiculous save. I can't remember. You and I were there. We lost that game 2-0 in the end. But
We lost that game 2-0. It was
Yeah.
1-0. We were chasing.
Yeah.
And then I think, they scored like in the 90th minute or something like that to connect the game. But because we were pressed, we were chasing the game. But it was a good, strong fight, and Keylor Navas made a couple of fantastic saves
Yep.
to keep them in the game. And we kind of lost because the second goal at the end. So even your big players, in instances like that, your big players need to come up for you with big plays. And I think that we're going to depend on Denzel because he's going to have some work to do. And then maybe a touch of brilliance from Levi, maybe Spicer, who's due a goal for us. He wants to score for Trinidad really badly. I think we should get the job done. But I think we might. Not to say I'm a naysayer. I think we might lose tomorrow, but I think it'll be a narrow defeat, and I don't think Grenada will beat St. Kitts as much as be as much as they need to. I think St. Kitts will give Grenada, once they play the way in which they play against Trinidad, and the game is in St. Kitts. I think that we would the other results will favor us and we'll go through.
Yes, yes. Like I say, folks, there's two sides of it. There's the analytical side where I can switch off the emotion, and then there's the fan. So of course, the fan, I optimistically look for a draw, but realistically, based on form guide and so on, it's always been close. So I think it's going to be a narrow, loss for Costa Rica will win. I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just saying that's what I think. And I think the scenario you discussed may play off. Of course, it could be totally different. And Trinidad goes on to have the game of their life. And, we get like a 3-0 victory and we all celebrate. Because to me, that would be a morale boosting victory against a team like that.
Of course.
Heading into the Gold Cup and all these things, even with the Unity Cup as well. I told people there's an article I wrote on extvmedia.com about that. So realistically, the analyst in me says a narrow defeat. And, I don't think that Grenada will get that result. But anything can happen. Let us know what you think in the comment section. We know there are multiple scenarios that could play off here. There's no wrong one because we don't know. We can't read minds. We just make educated guesses here. So let us know what you think in the comment section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about the squad, the players that are there, Dwight Yorke's approach? And, I'm going to do something I didn't do in a long time. In the comment section, I'll do a random draw. And I'll do what I used to do when Andrea and I first met all the way back in 2016 doing our first EXCV video together. We actually knew each other before that. I'll choose somebody randomly and they'll get a copy of EAFC 25 because it's no longer FIFA. I'm not putting out a challenge anymore. Before I was all cocky and be like, bring it on if you want to play me. But now I haven't played in a while, so I need to, humble myself a little bit. So with that being said, folks, listen, we had so much technical issues before we started this, the internet and things like that. But we woke up. This is the night before the match. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. If you have any questions for Andrea and myself, drop it in there and look out for our reaction. And hopefully it's a good one. So Andre, it's always a pleasure, and we'll be chatting with each other during the game. Hopefully it'll be celebrating tomorrow. And if not, we'll have a therapy session here for you all to see. Right. So
beautiful session. But we'll be good, man. I think we'll know by 3:00. Or sorry, by 5 p.m. tomorrow. I think Grenada's game will be done, and I think we'll be fairly comfortable knowing that we'll get through. So
to me, that's half the battle there. Depending on how that result goes, that'll affect my mindset and everybody else. So it's not all doom and gloom, folks. We do have the majority of the scenarios in our favor, but we'll see how it goes. So with that being said, folks, thank you for joining us, and look out for the reaction.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching Extra Time TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe.